All right, practice number 9, and Adam, the Buffs had their first scrimmage. We weren't able to see it, but able to talk to some coaches and players afterwards, and sounds like things went well. I mean, Coach Tucker mentioned that for a first scrimmage, guys really got after it, and there's still plenty to work on, obviously. But it sounds like he was pretty pleased.
He said you could tell there was a little anxiety with the team,
Yeah.
a little nervous energy. He said this is when you make a biggest jump, is from your first scrimmage to the next practice, because guys really have the film and you can't hide.
Yeah.
If you made a mistake, it's out there now. And it's funny, it was a close scrimmage. You talk to guys on both sides of the ball, and they both said their side of the ball did better. So
Right.
It's funny how that works out. But Jalen Jackson had a huge catch on a Hail Mary situation from Steven Montez, and it's just great to see him finally healthy. Darren Cheverini, who recruited him, basically knew him since he was a sophomore in high school, said, this kid can really help us this year. And so him and Dimitri Stanley have been the top slot guys, and so it's great to see him stay healthy and make some plays.
Yeah, and you talked to Cheverini for a little bit, and he mentioned Tony Brown as well. He's mentioned Brown to me in the past last week or so. He's been one of the more consistent guys on this team.
That's exactly what it comes down to. Consistently, day in and day out, he shows up and doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I think some of those younger guys, Daniel Arias, Dimitri Stanley, have tons of talent, but it maybe doesn't show up consistently like it does with Tony Brown. So maybe there's some people that didn't expect Tony Brown to really keep the spot with some of those young guys emerging, but it sounds like he's done everything this spring to keep that job. He also mentioned KD Nixon has been there every day, made a couple big plays today as well. So those have been the top two receivers with Laviska Shenault out this spring.
Yeah, I was going to mention that Steven, he highlighted KD as well, said he made a couple big plays. As far as Steven, he said he feels pretty good this spring, and it feels like he's throwing the ball pretty well. Yes, Tucker about him, though, and Tucker gets a pretty big smile. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Tucker likes the way Steven Montez plays football.
He's got all the physical tools.
Yeah.
What's not to like? And we've seen him mature over his time here. I mean, he still has things he needs to work on, and as Drew Wilson says, you got to be a captain every day. I think sometimes Steven struggled with that in the past. But, I mean, to be able to be a first-year head coach and have a fifth-year senior quarterback with the ability to throw, run, do everything, really. And, again, he's matured a little bit. So they're both lucky to have each other.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting, when you asked Tucker, what do you like about Steven? And he just kind of, his eyes light up when he talks about how Steven throws the football. So he likes what he has in his quarterback, that's for sure. He also mentioned that Tyler Lytle and Sam Neuer have come along as well. So obviously they're all learning the offense. But it sounds like you hear about the quarterback competition. Well, is anybody going to push Montez? It doesn't sound like it.
No, and Sam Neuer to me is one of the more perplexing players that I've ever covered here. He's been standing out in practice really since he got here. He does a lot of the good things, and I know he's been put in tough situations in games, but man, he's really struggled and doesn't look the part when he's out there in games. And the best play he made was a tackle after he threw an interception last year.
Right.
So it's another coaching staff that came in with no bias, and they see some things out of Sam Neuer too. So it's interesting. I mean, I'd love to see him put it together. He's a good kid, and he does have more athleticism than people give him credit for, and good accuracy in practice. I don't think the fan base has really ever seen that, obviously.
Right. And I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to see it. I mean, Steven's been pretty durable, but I would love to get a chance to see Sam in a starting role like 2-3 weeks in a row, just to kind of see if he's different in that regard, because it is a tough spot that he's come into. I mean, 2016, Steven didn't look very good coming off the bench most of the time, but in the starting role he did. So I don't know if we'll ever get to see it with Sam, but I'd love to see it and see, okay, what kind of quarterback is he really? On the defensive side, you talked to Mustafa Johnson, and he never really says a whole lot, right?
He's a good interview. Yeah, he's very candid, and he talked a lot about how the new terminology, the new concepts defensively, it's finally starting to sink in, so they can actually go play football, because when you're thinking out there, it's really tough. And he mentioned Tava Finau, who redshirted last year, as a guy that stepped up, had a big scrimmage today. That would be huge. They need guys to really emerge on that defensive line.
Yeah, I spoke with Tyson Summers for a little bit afterwards, and he mentioned, the same thing that Tucker's been talking about, playing physical. He said that's kind of the big thing. He goes, that's the standard they've been trying to set. And he said it really took a couple weeks for these guys to really adjust to that standard, but he feels like they're getting it, and that's starting to make a difference on the defense. But it sounds like it took a little bit to really get adjusted. Okay, we're going to play physical day in and day out.
Yeah, what were your takeaways with the safety competition there? Because we were having a conversation. It's tough to really peg who you'd put as the favorites to win that job right now.
Yeah, and Summers mentioned there's not a lot of experience there, obviously, and they're not at full strength. I mean, Aaron Maddox and Hassan Hippolyte have been limited in the spring, and Trey Udofi is just coming over from cornerback. But he mentioned that there's a lot of hungry guys there, and that right now Darian Rakestraw and Isaiah Lewis have taken most of the reps with the ones, but he likes what he sees out of Hippolyte, unlimited basis, and he said Trey's kind of coming along lately. So those are kind of the four guys you mentioned, but this is going to be an interesting competition going into the fall. If you have a healthy Aaron Maddox, Hassan Hippolyte healthy, those are two guys that you and I both liked, and so that competition is going to be interesting. And then you have some freshmen coming in. Mark Perry, is he a guy that comes in and makes a run at it? I don't know. I mean, there's certainly spots there.
Yeah, the staff is very high on Mark Perry, so
yeah.
He's going to have a chance to show what he can do. Another thing I'm curious to see is when Aaron Maddox gets healthy, is he going to play a traditional safety role, or are they going to maybe put him in? I think he would be a pretty good fit for that star position that Davion Taylor is probably going to be the starter at. But when he was close to the line of scrimmage as a nickelback last year, I thought Aaron Maddox looks really good. So that might be a good fit for him. That's another place they're going to need some depth to kind of show itself.
Yeah, well, that competition is going to be interesting, and we'll certainly monitor that through the fall. But that's one of those spots that's going to go maybe up to the CSU game, figuring out what's going on there. So anything else after this one?
Nope.
Good? All right. When we talked about the best interviews of all time, you're not it, apparently.
Oh, man.
So, Well, Adam and I will be back next week. We'll talk about practice number 10.